So, you just saved up some money, you know you want to get a reptile. You're thinking maybe in the lizard group, and you might want something that your friends won't have, maybe something a little less seen but still pretty easy. You might want something that takes up a small footprint but is like a great pet for any part of your house or wherever you live and would be a great addition. Or maybe you want something that's maybe a little bit easier, a little more flexible, but is still fun with. Or maybe you want something where the enclosure can look amazing, or something that needs just a really simple enclosure. Well, this is the top 5 best beginner lizards. Welcome to Ben's Reptiles, and I hope you like this video. This may be in the number 5 spot, but this is one of the coolest lizards I've ever seen. You want something your friends or people you know might not have. You want something a little less seen in the reptile hobby, but I think can make a great beginner lizard. You want something that will get you the closest to a dragon that you can get with something that is a beginner lizard. Well, look no further than the croc skink. The croc skink is about a 10-inch at full grown length skink, and it's got the body of a skink. It's got the small legs but the sturdy body. These are a little less handleable, so if you're looking for some handleable, I look more up toward the list for that. But they need about a 10 gallons for just themselves. 10 to 20 I think would be good. They do need high humidity, but they can go great in plant enclosures. So that is great. The price is around $150 to $200 if you're looking for one. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but you want to get them captive bred. And these, honestly, I think are a little underrated because they can make great pets, but the reason they cost a little more is because they produce less eggs, and so less are made, and so they are marketed higher. But they, I think, in the next few years will be coming up more in the reptile hobby. Number 4, you might have heard it, you might not have. You want something like a leopard gecko, but you want something a little less normal, if you know what I mean. Because I love my leopard gecko, but some people want something just with a little more exotic to it, just so it's a little bit different than what other people have. Well, look at the African fat-tailed gecko. It's exactly like a leopard gecko in a lot of ways, but it needs a higher humidity. It's from some different areas, but they look a lot alike, and their care, except for the humidity is a lot alike. They get just slightly smaller, 7 to 9 inches full length. Mid humidity. So if you want that in leopard gecko terms, leopard gecko would be low to mid. So this would be like mid, I'm guessing 50s, or 60s from, I'm guessing, I haven't done any exact research on that precisely. They need about a 20 gallons like a leopard gecko is what I'd recommend for base. They cost about $100 plus, maybe a little less if you can find a good deal, but they do come in some really cool morphs. Like there's an Oreo morph, which is really cool. So if you want something, it's like a leopard gecko, but maybe like more high humidity, maybe you want some just a little less normal than what other people have, I would definitely think about the African fat-tailed gecko. Now, to be honest, I didn't know too much about this until I was watching Joshua's Exotics YouTube channel, and he did a video setting up some Mediterranean geckos, and I looked more into them. They're actually very interesting. If you want something that takes up less of a footprint in your house, but like would look really cool, maybe in your living room, maybe in room, or something like that, look at the Mediterranean gecko, because it needs a small enclosure, maybe about 5 gallons, maybe a little less, just for one, because you might be thinking, well, like, that shouldn't be enough. Well, this gecko is actually 4 to 5 inches, so it's about half the length of my leopard gecko in size, and so they're great gecko if you want just a little smaller space. They like mid to high humidity, but something I thought was very cool was they only cost about $5 to $20 for a regular price because they are so small. But I definitely think if you want something that's good beginner, but you don't want to take up too much space, maybe a 20-gallon might be a little much. Maybe you want some with a low profile that can fit in a bookcase or cabinet shelf, or just smaller spaces. If you can't give up this much space, maybe go with the Mediterranean gecko because it does not need that much space. And I actually looked at it, and it's pretty cool. Now you will be seeing within a month or two, I will be getting one of these. These are one of the most popular geckos in the reptile hobby. Once you breed them, these things, I've seen them go for $26,000. High-end breeders can make a lot of money off these. They are like an opposite of a leopard gecko. They climb up the trees. If you know a lot about reptiles, or don't, you should know what I'm talking about. This, of course, is the crested gecko. Crested gecko, coming in at number 2, is honestly a great beginner gecko. Like I said, I'll be getting one soon, probably a bioactive setup, I'm thinking. It needs around high humidity. It grows to about 5 to 8 inches, so slightly smaller than a leopard gecko. Costs about $50 to $80 for just a regular type, maybe like a flame or Harley Quinn, which is a morph, but pretty nice but cheaper morph. Because like I said, they can go very high in price. It can make great breeding projects out of them, but they can also go very cheap for beginners. Some people say 12 by 12 by 18. I don't believe that. I think 18 by 18 by 24 is a great space because the 12 by 12 by 18, I think I checked, was around 10 gallons or so, if I'm right. Tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, but 18 by 18 by 24 is about 20 gallons, I think a little more, which should be great for a crested gecko because they need space, and a 12 by 12 by 18 isn't going to cut it. I think if you had to go really smaller than 18 by 18 by 24, I think an 18 by 18 by 18 would pass, but I would just go with an 18 by 18 by 24 as a tank. But they honestly are a great beginner lizard, and they're very cool because unlike leopard geckos, they actually crawl up glass and trees because they're arboreal. And then also, if you don't like feeding insects, this is a great option. There are diets out there that's just a powder and you mix with water and it makes a little paste, and that's all they'll have to eat for their whole life. You don't even have to feed them insects. So if you don't want to feed insects and you want something pretty cool, this would be a great option. Now, new would be on the list because I have one, and this is not all biased. I do believe these make a great beginner lizard. This is the leopard gecko. They are a terrestrial gecko that grows to about 8 to 11 inches, have low to mid humidity, are great for handleable, just like the crested gecko. They need about a 20-gallon, and their price is about $30 to $60. You normally find them at most pet stores, but I'm not going to go much into it this video, but I would not really recommend PetSmart or Petco because they don't take the best care of these or recommend the best care. So just like any reptile or any pet, do your research before you get one because you'd be surprised how many times people just impulse buy a reptile and come home and be like, wow, this is more than I thought I could. Well, it's just a reptile, it doesn't matter. So that actually happens. So do your research. Just because I say this is beginner does not mean it doesn't need care. But leopard geckos are great because in their tail, they actually have fat storage, which is an adaptation in the wild. So if you, let's say you're an adult and you have to go on a work trip for, let's say, a week. If they're about an adult or subadult, you could give them a big meal and maybe leave them some mealworms, and they'd be fine for about a week because they have the food storage to keep on going, and then just feed them when you get back. So these need a little less day-to-day maintenance, which is kind of easier for them, which is why they're at the top of the list. So if you want one of the best beginner reptiles in general, definitely consider the leopard gecko. Thank you for watching this video. I hope maybe you learned something about what you might want to get in the future for maybe a lizard, or just something that you might consider. You don't even have to be a beginner. Maybe you have kept multiple reptiles, and you just want something maybe just a little bit easier. You don't want something intense. But there's some variety on this list. Like, you've got cool, you've got a little bit different than the regular. You know, you've got some arboreal, some terrestrial, high humidity, low humidity, mid humidity, small, big. Nothing past, I think, 12 inches is what I mentioned. So, great beginner sizes, and nothing bigger than around a 20 to 25 gallon for tank size. So these is why they're all great beginner reptiles, but not all are handleable. Like, some are not, because the crocodile skinks aren't the most handleable of all the lizards. And I don't know too much about the Mano training geckos because I don't have too much experience with them, but I do know for sure that the crested and leopard gecko and the African fat-tailed gecko, if you tame them down, will be great for handleable and for playing with, like Pax right here. But I hope you enjoy this video, and I post every Monday, so keep on coming back to Ben's Reptiles, and I hope you learn something new every week.